it sounds like Native American or Native Australian or Native African Aboriginal perspective of you're a strand in the fabric of life. Is there any type of scientific studies out there validating this type of approach?
I mean, there are, but they're such reductionists that they're simply studying pieces of it. I mean, there's so many ethnobotanical studies that are going on right now to look at the use and the nutrient values of wild plants in various countries. But unfortunately, it's very reductionist. It's looking at this aspect and that aspect. And as far as I'm concerned, the people who, or at least some of the people who are trying to sort of pull in this whole mindset together into a way of living with less impact on the earth, in other words, more sustainably, are the primitive skills enthusiasts.
Right. Permaculture seems to come close.
Yeah, and permaculture isn't something that I've studied enough to be able to say yay or nay.
Right.
I'll rely on you and Mal and others in the community that have done that.
I think they walk from an agricultural perspective and not the hunter-gatherer, but they seem more than eager to learn about the wild edibles and medicinal.
Right.
Our ancestors' diet of, wild edibles, foraging for wild foods and meats and medicines, compared to our domestic diet of the last 500 years. Has there been any noticeable degradation of health or increase in health? How does that pan out?
Yeah, that's pretty easy. There's a number of people who are doing research on that topic, and probably one of the most known was the dentist, Weston Price, who in the 1930s toured to various countries on different continents looking for isolated people. In other words, isolated from the foods of modern commerce.
Right.
Refined sugar, white flour, canned foods, cage-reared grain-fed animals. These things that we see are very, very common foods, particularly here in the United States now. And he did notice things. And of course, he was a dentist, so he was trained to look for dental issues and the corresponding craniofacial issues that go with too small a maxilla, or upper palate, or a mandible that isn't properly sized so teeth don't line up in that thing. But now there's archaeological evidence that's been compounding on top of that has looked at primitive cultures and studied their bone density, higher than ours, studied their stature, taller, more robust, stronger than ours, studied brain size. In other words, by looking at the cavity, they possessed larger brains than we do. And it's very, very well known that when you take a hunter-gatherer society and you turn them into agriculturalists, there's a whole suite of things that happen, including about a 10 to 20% reduction in body size. We become less robust because we're not getting the nutrition we need to fuel I guess what I would call our true genetic potential.
You want to tell us about this book? Dozen, maybe 100 guides to wild, edible, and medicinal plants out there. This one, why is it different? Why did you feel the desire to come up with this? And I believe you're working on a second volume.
I am. I'm actually having the plans for this ancestral series, maybe as many as 4 different volumes.
Right.
The first 2 are going to be related to plants.
Okay.
And I guess where I think that they're a little bit different, they discuss a lot of primitive uses. So instead of just being a book about edible plants, and there are great ones on the market for those, or just being a book on medicinal plants, and again, there are good books on the market for that. This discusses those, as well as what woods would you want to make a bow from? What are your fiber plants? What plants can you make a mastic and adhesive so that you could haft a stone blade to an antler tip? What plants can we use as a dye? What are good tinder sources and what time of year? That kind of thing. Yes. So it presents a more holistic understanding of the things that we can use wild plants for. I've tried to sort of walk an intermediate detail so that each plant doesn't necessarily take 15 or 20 pages of text, but it's also not so cursory that you can't figure out what to do with it. You can use this as a leaf vegetable. Okay, well, when? How? How
Right.
long do I cook it? You know, so those questions are kind of answered. So this book, over 200 pages, and it covers about 100 species of plants.
Nice. So primitive skills folks like myself, we could just open this up and check out the plates, the color plates, the photos, and read the descriptions and preparations. And there's it looks like there's studies. There's modern studies of.
Excuse me. I tried to draw very heavily on a lot of the research papers, edited volumes, and that kind of thing that I've seen, so that people can get the 2 lines of evidence that I love to put together whenever possible. What is the folk use? What did the people who were native to the various continents use these plants for? And is there any modern study that corroborates it? And when you put those 2 things together, you come up with some very compelling information, and it helps me generate confidence. And it helps me give other people confidence. And look, the Midwestern natives used it as an antimicrobial, and multiple studies have shown that it's highly active against these bacteria. You can treat your family, you know, with confidence using this plant, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. I like the edible plant collection dates calendar you have in the back here. This is really nice.
I think those are crucial, and there's a few authors that do those. And it tells me that they're actually out there gathering, because they know when these plants are at the appropriate stage of collection on their landscape. But it also makes it easier for you being the public. If you are not super familiar with a lot of wild plants, this is a way to say, okay, here I am in early July. What's available in my area? Okay, there's 3 things. I'll go study those and learn where to find them.
Nice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Arthur Haynes from the Delta Institute and Maine Primitive Skills School. His new book, Ancestral Plants, A Primitive Skills Guide to Important Edible, Medicinal, and Useful Plants of the Northeast, Volume 1, is out. If you need information, where would you send them to get this book?
If you go to www.askimmin.org, which is anaskimine.org, you'll find the ordering form. You can also go to my website, arthurhaynes.com/foraging.htm, and you can figure out how to order it there. Or you can get in touch with Mike, and he'll hook you up too at the Maine Primitive Skills School.
Primitiveskills.com. We have a direct link as well. All right, thanks.
Cool.